Everyone said 2 days in DC wasn't enough time, so I made it my personal mission to prove them wrong. Monuments, museums, legendary local food, hidden neighborhoods, all of it in just 48 hours. This is exactly how I did it. Let's go! Morning, National Monuments Walk. On a map, walking from the National Mall monuments down to the tidal basin looks like a casual afternoon stroll, but in reality, it's a deceptively brutal trek. You're dealing with miles of wide-open concrete and crushed limestone gravel that kicks up white dust all over your sneakers and leaves your legs completely spent. But on my first morning, the air was crisp and I wanted to knock out this giant loop before the midday heat got too intense. I headed past the giant spike of the Washington Monument, cut right through the World War II fountains, and followed the gravel path down along the low granite wall of the Vietnam Memorial, aiming straight for the Lincoln Memorial. Those massive marble steps are no joke, and they will absolutely wake up your calves. When you finally make it to the top of the landing, don't rush to check out the view right away. Stop and look straight down at your feet. 3 steps down from the main platform, there's a single tile engraved right into the stone marking the precise spot where Martin Luther King stood to deliver his I Have a Dream speech. Standing on that exact stone, you get this stunning, uninterrupted shot straight down on the reflecting pool all the way to the Capitol Dome. Stepping off the main plaza and moving into the trees brings you right into the Korean War Veterans Memorial. Photos really don't prepare you for how haunting this area feels in person. You walk right alongside 19 stainless steel soldiers cutting through the rough juniper bushes and heavy combat ponchos. Their faces look completely hollowed out from exhaustion, and because of how they're angled, I felt their eyes were tracking me from every direction as I moved past. Right next to them, a polished black granite wall mirrors the statues to create a total line of 38 soldiers. A subtle nod to the 38th parallel. From there, I began wrapping around the water to the tidal basin. Before reaching the end, you hit the massive stone sculpture of the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial and the sprawling, quiet waterfalls of the FDR Memorial right on the shoreline. By the time I finished up at the Jefferson Memorial, I had clocked about 5 kilometers or 3 miles of pure walking. The whole loop took me 2 hours with plenty of stops along the way, and my feet were definitely feeling the distance. Insider tip: get to the Lincoln Steps by 8:30 a.m. If you wait until 9:30 a.m., the massive daytime crowds and tour groups arrive, which completely kills the quiet, heavy atmosphere of the memorials. Late morning, lunch at Bistro du Jour. That multi-mile trek around the monuments leaves you desperate for a chair. To escape the sun, I took a 15-minute walk to the mall over to Bistro du Jour on Capitol Hill. The restaurant is definitely a tight squeeze, with indoor tables packed so close together that I basically joined the conversations of the couples sitting on either side of me. But the cozy room has a great look with classic French posters covering the walls. Since every review I checked raved about the French onion soup, I ordered a bowl for $14. It was incredible. I had to pull my spoon through a thick, heavy layer of broiled Gruyere cheese just to get to the broth, which was deep, savory, and packed with enough soaked bread to completely fill me up. While I was eating, my eyes kept drifting to the tables around me. At $41, the steak frite is a bit of an investment, but watching the servers squeeze past my tiny table carrying plates of sliced steak and crispy thin fries gave me a total order envy. Next time, I'm skipping the soup and getting that steak instead. Afternoon, National Air and Space Museum. To burn off that heavy French onion soup, I took a 10-minute walk down to Maryland Avenue straight to the National Air and Space Museum, which houses the world's largest collection of historic aircraft and spacecraft. My first stop was the early flight gallery to find the 1903 Wright Flyer. It hangs right out in the open, and unlike the replica most people assume it is, this is the actual wood, wire, and fabric from Kitty Hawk. Up close, the wing canvas is so thin the interior wood framing shows right through, making the whole thing look more like a motorized bicycle than an airplane. From there, the signs lead deeper into the building to the Destination Moon Gallery to see the Apollo 11 command module. The museum lets you get right up to the glass to see the exterior metal, which is completely covered in black streaks and deep scorch marks from the atmospheric re-entry. Peeking through the small hatch windows reveals just how tiny the cabin is, with the entire living quarters for 3 astronauts looking no bigger than the front seat of a compact car. Did you know that Orville Wright and Neil Armstrong were actually alive on Earth at the exact same time for 18 years? Isn't it incredible that a person who witnessed the very birth of aviation lived long enough to see the generation that landed on the moon? Late afternoon, International Spy Museum. It's officially time to lean into your inner child. For the final stop of the day, I'm taking you to a place that turns grown adults into excited kids within 5 minutes of walking through the door. The International Spy Museum explores the global history of espionage and spycraft, but instead of just looking at dusty exhibits, the entire place operates like a giant interactive playground. The experience started the second I grabbed my ticket and got assigned a custom undercover identity. Throughout the floors, I had to scan my badge at high-tech consoles to test my actual spy skills, crack digital codes, and see if I could keep my fake cover story straight under pressure. I felt like a kid the entire time, getting surprisingly invested in my secret mission while trying to beat the timers on the puzzles. Once you look past the interactive games, the exhibits shift toward the Cold War era. The physical gadgets on display are completely mind-boggling, and the sheer engineering cleverness is wild to see up close. The cases are packed with things like micro cameras disguised as everyday objects, tiny audio bugs, and actual concealed weapons designed to look entirely harmless. But the real twist of the museum is that the human stories completely overshadow the tech. The galleries detail real-world double agents and shadow operations that sound so absurdly elaborate, you keep forgetting those were actual historic events and not Hollywood movie plots. Testing your wits against real intelligence history will cost you around $30 depending on the day, but the sheer entertainment makes the entire mission completely worth it. Evening, dinner at Ben's Chili Bowl. To wrap up the day, I took the Green Line straight to the U Street station. Ben's Chili Bowl sits just steps from the station exit, marked by its landmark yellow and red sign. Operating since 1958, this spot is a monumental piece of local history that survived the city's heaviest civil rights riots. Photos of famous guests from Barack Obama to Muhammad Ali line the walls, and patrons crowd the original Formica lunch counter. I grabbed a bar stool and ordered the signature original half smoke, which is a local DC staple made up of half beef and half pork sausage, split down the middle and grilled. The half smoke costs around $10, and adding fries and a drink brought my total to just over $20. The plate arrives buried under a mountain of yellow mustard, chopped onions, and their secret recipe spicy chili. Eating this neatly is impossible. The sausage has a distinct snap, and the smoky meat paired with the heat from the chili makes it clear why this counter stays packed. It's heavy, messy comfort food, and eating here feels like a mandatory DC rite of passage. Insider tip: if spaceships and secret agents aren't your vibe, DC's got you covered no matter your interests. You can head to the National Museum of American History to see pop culture icons like Dorothy's ruby slippers, wander among stunning masterworks by Monet and Van Gogh at the National Gallery of Art, or check out the mind-bending contemporary installations at the Hirshhorn Museum. Best of all 3 are completely free, so you can easily pivot to whatever makes you excited. Day 2. Capitol Hill and Washington's historic landmarks. Morning. Ford's Theater. For my first stop of the morning, I headed straight to a place that routinely tops everyone's DC checklist: Ford's Theater. Walking inside is a completely surreal experience because it isn't just a quiet historic monument, it's still a fully operational theater today. Before stepping into the main auditorium, I went down into the basement museum. It does a fantastic job covering the Civil War and Lincoln's presidency, but it also pulls back the curtain on the conspiracy plot, mapping out John Wilkes Booth's hatred and the secret network that helped him. The artifact that completely stopped me in my tracks was the original pocket pistol Booth used. The museum actually lets you touch a replica of it, and it's chilling to feel how tiny it is in your hand. It easily slips into a coat pocket, yet that single weapon fundamentally changed global history. Moving out onto the theater floor, your eyes are immediately pulled up to the president's box. It's beautifully preserved, draped in American flags with a portrait of George Washington right in the center. Standing there, looking at the exact spot where Lincoln was standing when the shot rang out gives you instant goosebumps. To finish the story, I headed directly across the street to the Peterson House, the boarding house where they carried the president after the shooting. Walking into that cramped back bedroom brings a heavy dose of human reality. Lincoln was 6'4", and the space was so tight they literally had to lay him diagonally across the tiny bed just to make him fit. Insider tip. Admission is technically free at the box office, but morning of tickets vanish fast. Skip the stress and jump online weeks ahead to secure a $5 timed entry slot. It guarantees you get into both the theater and the Peterson House without wasting your morning standing in line. The U.S. Capitol Building. You simply cannot visit Washington without stopping at the U.S. Capitol. Walking up to the building gives you a distinct rush because it feels like you're stepping onto a live news set. Before the tour even started, I spent time exploring the Visitor Center, which is well organized and breaks down how the government operates. From there, the guide leads you straight into the crypt. Despite the slightly spooky name, it's a striking, circular room supported by 40 stone columns. It was originally built to hold the tomb of George Washington, though he was never buried there. Next, you walk upstairs into the center of the building, the Rotunda. Standing directly beneath that soaring dome and looking up at the ceiling painting is neat. The walls are lined with historic oil canvases and tall statues. Our guide was incredibly sharp, sharing backstories about the art that you would never find out in a standard museum plaque. If you want to make the morning more interesting, you can watch Congress in session. The standard walkthrough doesn't include it, but you can snag a separate gallery pass. Sitting up in the viewing benches and looking down at politicians debating laws right in front of you is a unique experience. Insider tip. The 45-minute tour is free, but you need to book your timed ticket online well in advance to secure a spot. If you want those extra gallery passes to watch live debates, U.S. residents can grab them by stopping by their senator or representative's office on Capitol Hill, while international visitors can get them at the appointment desks inside. Late morning, Library of Congress. If your legs are holding up after the Capitol, don't leave the neighborhood just yet. Walk right across the plaza because the next building's going to completely change your perspective on what a library can be. Think about your standard library trip. You probably picture quiet corners, dusty shelves, and maybe a librarian shushing someone. Well, the Thomas Jefferson Building throws all that right out the window. The architecture completely takes over from the moment you step inside. It looks and feels way more like a grand European palace or a massive art museum than a place to look at books. I stood there with my head tilted back the entire time, just trying to take in the giant marble staircases, the bright murals, and the insane mosaic ceilings. The best view comes from when you take the elevator up to the viewing overlook. They keep the main floor restricted to actual researchers, but you can stand right up against the glass partition. Peering down into that huge circular room with people working beneath those giant stone arches is an incredible sight. Just like the Capitol Building, exploring the Library of Congress is completely free, but you do need to make sure you grab a timed entry pass from their website before you show up. Insider tip. Don't bother walking back outside, down the front steps, and across the street. Look for the underground pedestrian tunnel inside the Capitol Visitor Center instead. It connects you straight into the library, letting you skip the midday heat and bypass the outdoor security lines entirely. Lunch at Eastern Market. Are you ready for a clean break from the museums and monuments? Because it's time to find some great food. Just a few blocks from the capital, I came across Eastern Market. It's a historic public market that's been running since way back in 1873. Inside, you can find pretty much anything. Giant deli sandwiches, freshly baked goods, local seafood, international counters, and stands packed with fresh produce. I had no idea what I wanted when I walked in, so I just strolled around the stalls to see what would catch my eye. I ended up stopping by a popular counter called Market Lunch and ordered one of their famous crab cake sandwiches on a fresh roll with a bit of coleslaw, which came out to around $22. Insider tip. If you happen to visit on a Saturday or Sunday, you get a massive bonus. The entire block completely transforms on the weekends when local artists, jewelers, and antique vendors set up a huge open-air market all along the street outside. It gets a lot busier, but the neighborhood energy is unbeatable. Afternoon, National Museum of Natural History. Prepare to feel incredibly small the second you walk through the doors of the National Museum of Natural History. As soon as you step into the main rotunda, you stumble right into Henry, a massive 11-ton African elephant who instantly lets you know how giant this entire place is. The exhibits cover the history of the planet, mapping out everything from early human evolution and epidemics to deep-sea life in a massive ocean gallery. After exploring a few of those wings, I followed the crowds up to the second floor to see the Hope Diamond. This is the most famous blue diamond in the world, surrounded by centuries of stories about a tragic curse that supposedly ruins anyone who owns it. It's interesting because everyone's packed around a single display case to catch a single glimpse of it, but the diamond itself is actually only about the size of a walnut. Still, seeing that deep blue color catch the light in person is pretty incredible. The best part, though, is the fossil hall. Standing right underneath towering dinosaur skeletons is unreal, and the sheer variety means you can switch from looking at a T-Rex to tracking species across the globe in just a few steps. You think you'll stay for an hour, but you'll quickly lose track of time because every room has something else to see. Insider tip. Enter through the Madison Drive doors on the National Mall side. If you use the other entrance on Constitution Avenue, you walk into a lower level and completely miss that view of the elephant right at the start. Late afternoon, the White House. It feels completely surreal walking up to a building you've seen on screens your entire life. You turn the corner and there it is, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House. The funny thing is, my very first reaction standing out there was realizing it's actually pretty small. It looks like a massive palace on television, but in person, it's surprisingly compact. Because it functions as a live workplace for the president, the heavy security fencing keeps you back quite a bit farther than you'd expect too. Yet, even from a distance, standing there felt completely different from seeing it on a screen. There was so much happening right around the gates. I was standing shoulder to shoulder with news crews, heavy security details, and travelers who recognized the building instantly. Since nobody's letting you through the front door, you really just walk over, see the building, and grab your photos. I walked over to the south side onto the lawn called the Ellipse, which gave me the cleanest shot to frame up the house and prove I actually made it here. Evening. Dinner at Old Ebbitt Grill. The best part about finishing up at the White House is that you're only a few minutes away from Washington's oldest saloon. It's called Old Ebbitt Grill, and it's been open since 1856. Stepping through the doors felt like walking into a time capsule. The place has this heavy, old-school political energy with dark wood paneling, old photos, and historic memorabilia covering the walls. Presidents like Teddy Roosevelt used to sit at this exact bar, and even today, the booths are still filled with local politicians and journalists. While a burger or sandwich runs around $20 to $25, I went straight for the raw bar. The oysters are famous for a reason, and they were the best ones I had on my entire trip. For a heavier dinner, the popular crab cakes and fish entrees cost between $25 and $45. It's an incredible place to grab a drink, eat some seafood, and wrap up the entire trip surrounded by a century and a half of history. Useful info for spending 2 days in Washington, D.C. Best time to visit Washington, D.C. Picking the right month for D.C. completely changes the trip, mostly because you're constantly moving between the outdoor monuments and the indoor galleries. For me, April and October are the perfect windows. The weather hovers right between 60 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, around 15 to 24 degrees Celsius, so you actually feel energized walking around. Traveling there in July or August is rough. The summer humidity hits you like a wet blanket the second you step outside, and trying to trek across the giant open concrete plaza on the National Mall under that sun is just exhausting. Going in the winter means the massive tourist crowds totally vanish. Standing inside a completely quiet Lincoln Memorial feels incredible, but that freezing wind blowing off the Potomac River doesn't play around. The best strategy is to just use the heated Smithsonian museums as strategic warmth spots whenever your hands start freezing. Airport tips. If you're flying in for a DC trip, Reagan National is the absolute dream scenario. It sits right across the river, meaning a quick 10 to 15 minute cab ride gets you straight to the National Mall for around $15. Even better, you can just hop on the blue or yellow metro lines right at the terminal, and for less than $3, you're downtown in minutes. Dulles handles most of the big international flights, but it sits around 26 miles out in Virginia. A taxi or rideshare from there sets you back anywhere from $60 to $80. The smart play is taking the Silver Line Metro directly from the airport terminal. It takes about 50 minutes to reach the city center, but it only costs around $6. Baltimore Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport is also worth a look if you spot a massive airline discount, but the trek into DC requires a mix of commuter trains and takes significantly longer. Where to stay? Finding the right place to stay in DC comes to picking your favorite neighborhood vibe. If you want to step out your front door and instantly walk to the museums, Ford's Theater, or the White House, Penn Quarter is your spot. It has a high-energy city feel where budget-friendly hotels like Motto by Hilton offer smart, compact rooms starting at $190 a night, while historic boutique options like the Kimpton Hotel Monaco land closer to $300. For something with a bit more local soul, DuPont Circle is fantastic. It's packed with gorgeous historic row houses, lively coffee shops, and great evening energy. Standard rooms at places like the Royal Sonesta usually run about $220 a night, but if you want to splurge, the DuPont Circle Hotel sits right on the main square with an awesome terrace for around $380. Then you have Capitol Hill, which places you right next to the Capitol landmarks and the weekend food stalls at the Eastern Market. It's all about historic, leafy streets and classic brick architecture. A charming spot like the Phoenix Park Hotel puts you right near the action, starting around $230 a night. Where to eat? The food scene in DC goes way beyond standard political power lunches, and if you want to swap out the itinerary spots for a few incredible meals, these are the exact places I'd target first. For an absolute rite of passage experience, you have to grab a table at Le Diplomat in Logan Circle. It's a widely popular, high-energy French brasserie that's always packed with a mix of locals and politicians. The atmosphere feels straight out of Paris, and their famous burger, the Burger Américain, absolutely lives up to the massive hype. A dinner here usually runs between $40 and $60 a person, depending on your main dish, but the people watching alone makes it worth every penny. If you want a complete shift in vibe, check out Deep Cow in Columbia Heights. It's a loud, vibrant neighborhood joint that skips the usual tourist script to serve up bold, spicy Laotian food. They focus heavily on incredible herbal salads, crispy coconut rice, and amazing shared plates packed with intense chili and lime flavors. Depending on how many fiery dishes you stack up, you're looking at about $35 to $55 a person. For something unique, book a table at Oyster in Shaw. This is a Michelin-starred spot that serves a spectacular multi-course tasting menu built entirely around sustainable vegetables and local oysters. They turn things like wild mushrooms, seasonal roots, and seaweed into mind-blowing fine dining dishes that will completely flip your idea of vegetarian cooking. The set menu runs about $105 per person, and once you add in drinks and tax, expect the total to land closer to $130 to $160. It turns out Washington isn't just this cold, sterile background for the evening news. Step past those massive marble buildings and you'll find actual brick-and-mortar neighborhoods where real life is happening right down on the street. If this plan helped you sort out your trip, leave a like and subscribe. And if you're planning to explore more of the USA, click right here to check out my New York guide next.